Starting now, and we're on. Hi, everyone. It's episode 64 of the Technology for Good show. Thank you for joining us. We are live today, Friday, 3rd of July. My co-host Chris is with me. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself there?
Hi, Chris Kernahan, Principal Consultant at Bluefin Solutions and Cloud Architect, General Lover of Technology and SAP Mentor. Thanks very much for having me back, Tom.
Not at all. Thanks for coming back, Chris. Myself, my name is Tom Raftery. I work for an industry analyst firm called Redmonk, and we do this show every week at this time. If you're watching a recorded version of the show, we do it on Friday, 4 p.m. UK and Irish time, 5 p.m. Central European time, 11 a.m. Eastern, and 8 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, and anytime we mention lottery numbers, just remember it is a recording. It's not a preemptive thing. It's not a premonition. Don't worry.
So we've a good few stories this week. The typical way we operate this show is we start off with a bad news story to kind of set a bit of scenery, and then we go into all the good news coming after that. We have a lot of good news this week. Yeah. Interestingly, a lot of it's in the energy space this week, not as much in the technology space, although one kind of leads to the other. So the bad news story, and that comes out of Alaska, and that story says basically that there are a ton of wildfires happening there at the moment. I'll just share the screen there so you can see the story itself. The links to all these stories are in the notes as per usual, and you can see that the wildfires, which are obviously a consequence of the drought, the raised temperatures in Alaska at the moment as well, and there's now a fire season with 2 million acres having been burnt. And a long way still to go in the fire season. The fire season in Alaska will go through until around September when the rains start again. So 2 million acres burnt so far this year.
Can you show the graph? Can you show the graph about halfway down? Show the graph about halfway down. That is terrifying.
Yeah. So that's you can see there. That's cumulative wildfire acreage burned through June 30th from 94 to 2015. So 94 on the left going across to 2015 on the right. Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty spectacular. That's a very, very scary graph, as you say.
It is.
So 2004 was one of the big years, and that's right here. And 2015, we're over here, and there's still a long way to go in the wildfire season in Alaska this year. So it's kind of depressing. So we'll get off the bad news and onto the good news.
Yeah.
So in better news, we see this one. Tammy's on. Excellent. Chris is also a SAP TD speaker. There you go. Calling out there, Chris.
I'm a SAP Tech Ed speaker this year.
Excellent. Congrats. I did it last year, so we now have 2 for 2. Excellent.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it again. Always good to be there.
What are you speaking? What are you speaking on, by the way?
So it's I submitted 2 abstracts. One's been waitlisted and the other one's been accepted. So this year it's the highly exciting and deeply, deeply sexy topic of change management and hybrid landscapes for SAP.
Lovely. Change management is a horrible discipline.
I know. But do you know what? Actually, it's really easy to talk about because so many people do it so badly. So it's really easy to talk about. And then the other one that was waitlisted was quick. So it was quick and dirty performance analysis using SAP Lamira. So it's taking system performance and basically it's going from performance problem to meaningful insight in 24 hours. So
interesting.
Yeah, I both of them I submitted because they were derivatives of pieces of work that I'd done recently, and they were pretty interesting. So I thought I should share them. Yeah.
Good.
Exactly. Well, thank you. So Yeah.
We'll crack on. So the first of the good news stories is this one out of Brazil. Brazil announcing a massive reforestation and renewable energy plan with the US. And this is part of an Obama initiative where he's gone around to China, India, and now Brazil and done kind of bilateral agreements in each country around climate change. Getting China on board was a huge coup.
Oh, God, yeah.
He did that last November because it was the US and China were the two main blocks to an agreement in Copenhagen, a comprehensive agreement in 2009. Yeah. Now that China and US are on board, we're looking forward to some, decent initiatives in this year's Paris Climate Conference. But I thought what was interesting about this was the fact that they've agreed a massive reforestation in Brazil, plus an enormous uptick of renewables for generation, and we're not talking hydro. It's it's wind and solar, and they're talking about doubling or tripling the amount of wind and solar in their systems between now and 2025, I think it is, or 2030. So that was a huge announcement. And then this week as well, China made its commitment on renewables for the climate conference as well. And they made a significant commitment, and the announcement is here in this story. It's again, they did it in terms of GDP, and they said they're going to cut their greenhouse gas emissions per unit of GDP by 60 to 65% from their 2005 levels. They're talking about it. That sounds quite good. When you actually hear it done in terms of renewables as a percentage, the grid, it works out at 20% renewables by 2030, which actually sounds quite modest. But on the other hand, when you look at some of the actual figures involved, they're increasing their wind power to 200 gigawatts and their solar power to 100 gigawatts from 95 and 28 respectively today. We talked last week about the change from 28 to 100 in solar, and now there's a change of 95 to 200 in wind announced as well. There's a huge uptick, and we'll follow up on this with some of the later stories in solar at the moment. And solar has really kind of been taking off, and a lot of it's to do with the price reductions. And I wrote an article about it in Green Monk during the week. It's a huge positive feedback loop where, because the Swanson effect, which is kind of like Moore's law, but Moore's law for computers, there's this thing called the Swanson effect for solar, and it says that as the global capacity doubles, the price drops by 20%, and that has held true for the last 30 years. And we're still seeing it. So you get this positive feedback loop happening as more and more solar is put out there. The price falls, which makes it more attractive, which means more and more is put out there. Yeah. So and some of the other stories that we'll talk about in a second demonstrate that there's been a huge uptick in solar, and it has led to big price drops. We talked last week about the record that was set in Dubai. At the end of last year, 5.84 cents per kilowatt, and that's huge when you consider it's 9 cents per kilowatt for gas in Dubai, which is their chief source of energy there.
Yes, we talked about Statoil just before we came on, and their natural gas and all the rest of it. So, I was interested when you said it was by unit of GDP. Yeah. Because that's always one of those metrics that people use to hide stuff. As when people talk about as units of GDP, it effectively means that during the good years, when people have money to spend, that's fine. But when years become lean, then their commitment decreases in line with what the amount of money that they have. So it's one of those ones. It's the we'll see the parents give to their children.
Yeah. The one thing I'd say about China is over the last 8 years or so, anytime they've made or announced a target like this, they've always under-promised and over-delivered.
Yeah.
So, and it's held true for everything that they've announced on climate. I mean, the 95 gigawatts of wind, they initially targeted 20 gigawatts, and then 30 gigawatts, and then 100 gigawatts. And they just kept going up and getting there before they set the target to do so. So while 20% from renewables by 2030 seems modest, it is modest.
Yeah.
I'm betting they'll hit that well before 2030 and then up the target again.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes to one of those things that the way the structures of their government work and things like that, and accountability, I'm not surprised that they underpromise and overdeliver. Yeah.
True. Yeah. We'll keep going though, because there's a lot to get through, and we have a limited time. So the next story, I said we were going to talk about solar for a while. The CEO of First Solar announced that we'll be under $1 per watt fully installed by 2017 for solar power. We've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks now, and it seems no matter where we turn, we're coming up with more and more stories around this kind of thing, around the continued falling price of solar and the knock-on effects that's going to have. And he's talking about things like, the fact that it's utility scale, the fact that cost is dropping, and that's leading again to a positive feedback loop. He talks about the expiration of the ITC. The ITC is basically a subvention for solar, and that's going to expire. But he's saying that that's irrelevant, because within 18 months, we're going to, and in his words, we will overcome the cost delta resulting from the drop of the ITC from 30% to 10%. Basically, it doesn't matter because the cost is going down anyway. So
can we contextualize who this man is, just so that we're clear? Last week we talked about the Dubai project. This is the guy who actually owns the company that's doing that. Correct?
He's one of the consortium. It was Aqua Power, but they'll be using his. Aqua Power is based out of Riyadh. But yeah, they'll be using the First Solar solar panels. Because
there's a statement in that where he talks about they won the 13 megawatt first phase at a relatively high price because the cost structure wasn't known. By the second phase, the megawatt the price was in the 5 cent range, and the customer response was to double demand. So this it leads on from a story that we did last week, but this guy knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely.
100%,
Yeah, no, completely, and that's it here. The bit you're referring to, right there. My computer's going so slow today. I'm not sure what the problem is. So yeah, in Texas 18 months ago, they had responses in the. We had a 4 in front. We had 4 companies in the front for a price 4 cent solar. Now the 4 cent solar that he's talking about there, and that comes up in the next story as well. That includes a bit of a subvention. So it's not an apples to apples comparison with the Dubai story of last week where it was 5.84. Yeah. But basically the takeaway from this. From last week's story, from the First Solar CEO story just there, and this story, this story talks about Austin Energy getting 1.2 gigawatts of solar bids for less than 4 cent. Basically, this is the first time there's been under 4 cent bid within the US. This comes with a bit of a subvention. The Dubai one was completely by itself, nothing holding up the price at all. It was a bare 5.84, no subventions whatsoever. This one in Austin Energy, there's a bit of a subvention there, but still it's a record price. And you can see that graph here of it. This is the price in 2008. This is the price in 2014. This is the price they're expecting in 2016, based on the price they got, and they're looking at it going, right down here to under $20 per megawatt by 2020. That's 2 cents per kilowatt by 2020.
And let's remember, when you pair this stuff with the work that Elon Musk is doing with his battery packs and stuff like that, it goes back to this whole idea: electrify everything.
Yeah.
And this we're going to be able to do it. It's thrilling. This is brilliant. So,
it is, yeah. I mean, solar will be cheap and ubiquitous, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not just for the likes of you and I, but for the likes of developing countries who don't have an electricity and a national infrastructure. There are currently 1.3 billion people in the world who don't have any electricity.
Yeah.
Bringing them online, the price of bringing them online is going to go through the floor. They'll be able to get online. They won't have to build out national grid infrastructures like we have with central generation facilities. They can have microgrids, community grids, that kind of thing, and they will have power. Facebook, Google, etc., are going to make sure they have internet access.
Yeah.
Oh, and SpaceX as well, and the other consortia. So we'll have an extra 3 billion people who are not online at the moment coming online, thanks in part to ubiquitous internet and shortly ubiquitous power as well, thanks to the crashing price of solar.
Well, we saw the micro generation from, I think it was there was an American community project that were doing some micro generation on solar.
Yeah,
that was a phenomenal story. So you get, if these communities are contributing back in terms of lessons learned and architectures and things like that, it's just going to make it easier for microgeneration and community projects actually to get off the ground.
No, completely agree. And I mean, there's lots of little microgeneration and community solar projects happening in Africa at the moment as well, and in India. I mean, we talked last week about India are upping their solar targets from 20 to 100 gigawatts. It's kind of insane numbers.
I've always been curious to know, because India does have a lot of nationalized industries and things like that, and India is obviously a very complex and state in its own right. Mm-hmm. And do they have a single power company? Do they have multiple power companies? How do they do it? And all that sort of stuff. It's something that it only hit me last week or late last week after we talked about the story that they were going to increase the amount of generation. I just haven't had a chance to look into it this week at all.
I'm not sure myself, to be honest. I suspect they don't have one power company. I suspect it's
many. I don't think so.
Maybe on a state-by-state basis.
Yeah. Which in its own right is a massive undertaking to bring those power companies under control.
Yeah, no, completely. And they burn a lot of coal in India as well, so they're going to have to get off that. But with the crashing price of solar, it'll make things easier to do that now. But speaking of coal, we saw this story coming out of Germany this week. Germany are going to mothball their coal power plants to meet their climate targets. Germany is one of the biggest coal burners in Europe, probably after Poland, they're the largest. So they know they can't continue to do this. So they've decided, to shut down their largest coal plants. They want to reduce their CO2 emissions by 40% by 2020, which is compared to 1990. So we talked about China comparing to their 2005 goals. This is Germany going back as far as 1990 and cutting those 1990 emissions by 40% by 2020, which is, that's an ambitious goal.
That is, and Germany has quite a large coal mining industry.
Yeah, it does. Hopefully that'll be shuttered.
Yeah.
Because we don't want them digging it up and sending it to someone else to burn.
No, true. But some of the pieces of kit, you go onto those shows that Extreme Machines or World's Biggest Machines, and you see them. A lot of those are in Germany.
Right.
They are absolutely phenomenal things. So they are massive, but they're all electric.
Right. Yeah. They have to be. Minds of an enormous.
Oh, you've disappeared again. we're having technical difficulties again. Hopefully my computer won't blue screen this week. So, so while we're waiting on Tom, yeah, it's interesting actually because Germany obviously shuttered its nuclear power plants in the wake of the Fukushima disaster, and they had to bring some of their old coal power plants back online. But Germany's actually a massive renewables energy country as well. Whenever I was working at SAP, they had massive amounts of solar in and around the Heidelberg and Waldorf areas. So yeah, that was actually pretty interesting. So it was a fascinating place. So hopefully Tom will be back in a minute. And I'm either talking to everybody or I'm talking to nobody. In which case, apologies. Oh, and he's back. Hello.
Sorry, Chris.
Did you break it again? I've warned you. I have warned you. So I have.
Oh,
so I was regaling the people with my my stories of German renewables, especially around the Waldorf and Heidelberg areas.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Strange place. Apart from the fact it's where SAP is, and that makes it strange by its own right, but it's incredibly flat, and there's no hedges between fields and things like that. They all just run into each other.
Yeah,
it is. You sit and you look at it and you go, there's something not right here, and then slowly but surely you pick out the things that are different from when you're in Ireland or a country that has an effective relief, So
it's the spargel.
Yeah.
Spargel, for anyone who's not familiar, is asparagus, which is grown in enormous quantities in and around Waldorf.
Oh God, it is. It really is. Okay,
so we'll crack on. You managed to keep it going while I disappeared there for a few minutes.
I did, yeah. It was tough going, Tom. I didn't know what to say. You know.
Sorry about that.
Shy.
All right, we'll crack on. We talked about gas as well, and there's a report came out saying that basically water use in and around fracking facilities is just through the roof, basically, if you'll pardon the almost pun. This is the result of a US Geological Survey study published by the American Geophysical Union. It's a national scale analysis and map of water use from hydraulic fracturing operations. And you can see, look at Texas there, for example.
Yeah.
The amount of water being used there goes from 10,000 to 36,000 meters cubed per well, which is, insane. Particularly Texas is quite water stressed. There's not a lot of fracturing happening in the West anyway. But some of the states, that's Pennsylvania and places like that as well, they're in big trouble. It's just ridiculous. Fracking has an enormous water footprint, and what they do with that water is insane, because a lot of that water is so contaminated afterwards they drive it deep underground where it can never ever go back into the water cycle again.
Yeah.
So, not good. Not good.
It really, really isn't. It really isn't good. There are days when you sit and you think, who thought it was a really, really good idea to go and hydraulically fracture rock that underpins, so much of the ground, and then contaminates groundwater and things like that. I don't get it. I really don't. There are enough places to get the natural resources that these guys are going for.
Just look up in the sky.
Yeah. Exactly.
But they can't make a quick buck off that.
No.
But better news coming out of Scotland.
Yes.
That was tremendous. Scotland got more than 50% of its electricity from renewables in 2014. Yeah. I mean, wow, awesome sauce. I mean, and this is data from the Scottish government. Showing that the country generated 49.8% of its electricity from renewables in 2014, effectively meeting its target of generating half its electricity demand from clean sources by the end of this year. So they're 6 months ahead no, they're 1 year ahead of their target of 50% by the end of 2015. They've done a spectacular job. It's mostly in Scotland from wind, not surprisingly.
Is that near the Parliament or away from the Parliament? Sorry.
No.
I know. It's an easy target. So, but it's a phenomenal statistic. You know,
it is.
You know, I would never ever have put it anywhere close to that.
And not only that, but they have you know, they're not stopping there. The next target they have is to have a 100% of their power, or 100%, sorry, of their demand from renewables by 2020. And wow. I've no doubt that they'll meet that target. But what they will actually do, I think, with a lot of it is they will sell that either across the water to either Northern Ireland or on into the Netherlands, somewhere like that, or down into the south, down into the UK.
I'd say probably go down to the south, but there's the Caledonian circuit, isn't there? That runs between Scotland and Northern Ireland. It's a power bridge.
Yeah.
So there is. So it's funny that I did a bit of checking, and Northern Ireland is not brilliant, but certainly they have two targets, one at 2020 and one at 2050.
Yeah.
So they want to have 400 megawatts of tidal by 2050, and 4.2 megawatts by 2020, which will account for most of their power generation needs. Right. So by 2050, all the coal power stations, or 2020, coal power stations and gas turbines will be shut down.
By 2020.
By 2020.
Okay, good.
Which is a very, very ambitious target.
Yeah, it is, and you know, 5 years time. That's wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Excellent. Phenomenal. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them. We talked about solar earlier, and there's another interesting story I saw on solar, and it comes out of the UK, interestingly, and it was that the UK is hoping to set a new record today, and that record would be to get 15% of its power from solar, and they reckon the peak in solar will happen today, or happened, I should say, today at around 2 p.m. UK time, so about 2.5 hours ago.
Yeah.
We still don't know whether they reached that 15% record or not, but the chances are high because they've come close to it before, and it's a hot, sunny week this week, and they've installed more solar since the last time that they almost hit the 15%. So it's looking good. One of the cool statistics that I saw in this story, if I can scroll down, as I say, this machine's going incredibly slowly. According to the German Solar Trade Association, through technological breakthroughs in mass production, they're saying the prices for solar electricity could be decreased by 90%. And they're saying in 30 countries worldwide, electricity from your own roof now costs less than what your local provider will charge you per kilowatt hour.
Jesus.
You know, so we've been saying it that the cost of solar is going through the floor. 90% electricity decrease that they're talking about there. Even if they only hit 50%, it's impressive. But you know, if they get to 90%, I don't see why they wouldn't. That curve, that Swanson's effect we talked about last week, it happened and is happening, and it continues to happen. And you know, there's nothing stopping it on the horizon. Yeah. In fact, we're seeing breakthroughs coming through, you know, week by week, day by day, in terms of press releases, stuff that's happening efficiently in the lab. And there's a couple of more stories like that coming up, which it'll take 3, 4, 5 years to actually reach a production rollout. So, you know, and those will lead to more efficiencies and more price reductions. So, you know, the continued reduction is going to continue.
It will do. It will do.
So tremendous stuff there. There's some news on the storage side of things as well, and the main story I saw there comes. It's not the utility scale storage. It's on the kind of devices level scale at the moment. It comes from Samsung, and they're talking about a new type of anode. Basically, it's a graphene covered anode, and they go into some of the reasons why it's so cool in the article. So it's graphite based anodes. You can see it just there in the article as he tries to highlight it. They've been talking about silicon anodes for years. One of the problems with that is that you have to insert lithium into the silicon, and that causes the anode to expand by as much as 400%, which means they have to build a battery which has that expansion built into it. So the batteries are 400% bigger than they need to be. The silicon shrinks back to its normal size after the battery discharges, but it keeps going, expanding and contracting as you charge it and discharge it. To get over that, they say you can take that silicon, grow some graphite-free graphene on it as a coating. The coating helps counteract the expansion and keeps the silicon intact for longer periods, which means you get a smaller battery with greater energy density. And therefore, it also, the authors claim that the graphene coated silicon anodes allow for charging densities that are 1.8 times greater than lithium-ion batteries at the moment, and that they keep their charge 1.5 times. They're still holding 1.5 times more volumetric energy density than batteries we have now.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it is all about energy density and charge density. That's where batteries effectively become so useful. The more charge density you can pack into it, things like this, your little battery pack and all the rest of it, the more power you can put into it, the more useful it is.
Yeah.
So and at the moment, lithium ion as a mass produced battery is the most efficient. So it is. We're seeing new batteries all the time with graphene and things like that. I've seen a couple of other. Have you ever heard of a wet battery?
Yeah, I have.
A flow battery.
Yeah, as well.
So I was reading a really interesting article about a startup that had been in stealth mode for 5 years, and they were looking at flow batteries, and about 3/4 of the way through the development, there were just some things that they couldn't resolve, especially around the turbine in the flow battery, and they actually ended up going back to a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's sort of it's a wet battery, so it is, but it's more like silly putty, it's like a non-Newtonian liquid. It flows, but it's wet. But once you actually pour it into the actual battery itself, it retains that wet characteristic, which means the anode doesn't need to be as big, and it can be in one. It doesn't need to be layered either, which contributes to making the anode smaller, the anode and the cathode smaller, and you get a much larger charge density or power density into it. Absolutely phenomenal stuff.
Amazing. No, it's awesome. One of the cool things that we're starting to see people do now with these batteries is, I mean, we've talked about Teslas and all that kind of stuff before, and that's pretty interesting, but we're going beyond that now into the public transportation sector, and we're seeing things like buses being built which are fully battery electric, and that's pretty amazing, because the diesel bus infrastructure and the amount of the amount of pollutants they spit out is it's nasty. I mean, you stand behind one of those buses as it takes off, and you get a cloud of stuff coming at you. And for people who have breathing issues, COPD, and just even asthma, the pollutants that come out of those, the particulates, are just awful. So getting battery electric buses is a big deal, and there's this company, Proterra, who are making battery electric buses, which and it actually says right here the diesel buses get around 4 to 5 miles a gallon, whereas Proterra make the electric bus 5 times more efficient and obviously doesn't clog up the streets with diesel exhaust. They're expensive up front, but they don't have anything like the cost of A, fueling them, or B, maintenance, because maintenance of an electric vehicle is far less an issue than maintenance of diesel.
Yeah.
And diesels themselves are reasonably economic in terms of maintenance because they're a reasonably simple engine, but battery electric are incredibly simple in terms of maintenance.
Look at the Tesla. The Tesla itself is, there are 4. You don't have a central engine. You've got four engines, one at each wheel. And it's such an amazingly simple propulsion design. Granted, the software and the controls and effectively the fly-by-wire that goes into it is complex, but it doesn't need maintenance in the same, anywhere near as much maintenance as a physical device.
Correct.
So, and then you have the added benefit of things like over-the-air updates and that type of stuff, where you can actually tweak. Imagine this: you can actually tweak the firmware on the bus to provide different power distribution levels based upon the weather, or that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Because batteries obviously perform at different levels in different weather. So, a bus in Alaska will have a different power utilization profile to one in San Diego because of the temperature difference in the battery and how it discharges.
Yeah, no, completely. It's phenomenal. The advances we're seeing in battery electric vehicles. I mean, the new Tesla, the Model 3 that's coming out, will start to be affordable.
yeah, absolutely.
So whether I'd go for that or whether I'd wait and just go for renting autonomous vehicles whenever I need transportation, I'm still not sure.
It's a difficult one. I'm seriously tempted to. That Model 3 just is gorgeous. I so do want a Tesla. I really, really do. I don't mind giving money to. I wouldn't mind giving him money. There are other people in the world I really object to giving money, Michael O'Leary being one of them. So
sympathize. By the way, I mentioned solar and some of the advances we're seeing in solar. One of the links I forgot to drop in was this one, which I thought was cool. This is a thing called perovskite power. Basically, perovskite is it's a material which is being manufactured now. It's very cheap to manufacture, and they've recently figured out how to make perovskite solar cells as efficient as the typical PV solar cells that we have today. You can see it here in the article. Known as perovskites, they can form crystalline solar cells that are easy to work with, easy to adjust for improved performance, and very easy to afford. And in recent experiments, Los Alamos, that's the energy research facility, had produced perovskite crystals that exhibit solar conversion efficiencies comparable to those of silicon, the current gold standard.
Wow.
So, again, now this is research that has just been published. This was published on 26th of June, so just last week.
Yeah.
Again, this is another one of those things that means the Swanson effect is just going to keep on going down and down and down, because this is a material as efficient as silicon, cheaper than silicon, easier to work with than silicon. And it's still in the research phase. It'll be 3, 4, 5 years before it starts to be rolled out any serious numbers in production, and at which time it will reduce the cost even more.
Yeah, it's not being easier to work with than silicon. That's that's the thing that really makes it worthwhile. So it is.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll crack on, because there was interesting news out of the US this week around rules to do with the big rigs and buses and the other medium and heavy duty trucks and things like that on the US highways. There was new laws proposed on Friday by the EPA. They've been finalized. They're part of the climate action plan to increase the fuel efficiency of big rigs. They want to, it's part of the whole idea of cutting the CO2 emissions by a billion metric tons and reducing oil consumption by 1.8 billion barrels. And they want to reduce transportation sector's impact on the climate. In the US, transportation accounts for something like 30% of emissions or more, I think.
I'm wondering if the photographer knows that he's actually photographed Optimus Prime. I don't know if he knows that, because Optimus Prime doesn't use gas. But yeah, but as you said before, what was it? You were talking about the EPA. And what was it again? I genuinely have just taken a blank about somebody being exempt from.
Oh yeah. The Clean Air and Water Act, that the oil and gas companies were made exempt.
Sorry, oil and gas wasn't transport. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. But the cool thing about this is that they want to reduce. They want to make these big rigs far more efficient. The EPA's standards would apply to semi-trucks, large pickup trucks, vans, and all buses and work trucks built for model years 2021 to 2027. So it's not going to come into effect immediately, but what it means is the manufacturers now have 5 years to make the trucks that come out in 2021 as fuel efficient as they need to be to meet the new standard.
Yeah.
So they're giving industry a bit of time to get to the new standard. Today's average big rigs get about 6 miles per gallon. The EPA, they're not talking in miles per gallon, they're talking about grams of CO2 per mile, and they want to get that way down. So it's we talked about the whole GDP metric the Chinese were using. This is a different metric. It's actually, I think, a better metric, grams of CO2 per.
I was going to ask whether you thought it was better or not. Ultimately, it doesn't mean that the engine itself has to decrease in size. It just means that what it actually burns has to be a cleaner burn.
Yeah.
It has to actually be much more efficient. So by measuring carbon dioxide in grams per mile, it means that you have to burn the fuel much more efficiently, because there is a reasonable amount of unburnt fuel, especially in the big rigs.
Yeah.
So there is. Unless you actually get into supercharging and turbocharging, where you actually bring that air back in again for recirculation. But it's one of those ones there's a compromise there somewhere. The EPA is an agency that is historically a large, has always been subject to compromise.
Right. True. Yeah, and it has to be, given where it is, and the bipartisan nature of politics in the US. But I would say that in Europe, the main measure here for transportation is grams per kilometer.
Yeah.
So and I think it makes sense, because miles per gallon, if it's not burning it clean, is irrelevant. I mean, if it's what you need to be. And in fact, when I came here to Spain in 2008, that was the metric I used to look for cars. And I narrowed it down to 2 cars based on the size of car I was looking for and the emissions. And the 2 cars I narrowed it down to were the Ford Focus C-Max and the Prius. They were both around the 117 grams CO2 per kilometer, if I remember. They were after subvention. There was a subvention from the Andalusian government of 3,000 euros for the Prius. There wasn't any for the C-Max. And when you took away that 3,000 from the asking price of the Prius, suddenly it was the same price as the C-Max. And it's a slightly bigger car, so I just said, sod it, we'll go for the Prius. So that's what I've been driving ever since. So That was cool. But yeah, back then that was my filter on transportation back in 2008. Like I say, it makes more sense in miles per gallon, because when you're talking miles per gallon, you're talking about the money you save yourself. You're not talking about actual CO2 emissions.
No, exactly.
And
exactly.
so, you know, for me, that was the more important filter.
Yeah.
So back to solar again and transportation and the solar impulse.
Yeah.
The plane that is crossing the Pacific at the moment is due to touch down in Hawaii, having flown from Japan. Basically, any minute. I think it was due to touch down in the next 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
They have a live counter here on their Solar Impulse site, which is in the notes as well, and they're saying they're 92 kilometers out at the moment, but I think that's been saying 91, 92 kilometers for the last 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So it must be in a kind of a holding pattern while they wait for weather on the ground to calm down. The plane is, you know, it's got these massive wide wings, so it needs low wind conditions on the ground before it can touch down. Any heavy winds, and you know, it'll flop over to the side and damage the wings.
Well, that's what happened when it was on its holding pattern in Japan.
Correct.
It actually they had to re-land. They took off from China and they had to land in Japan because of bad weather, and they were there for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. And the
About a month, yeah.
The plane itself actually got damaged in high winds on the ground.
Yep. And if you look at it, the plane took off, and you can see it here since takeoff. The plane took off 4 days and 21 hours ago, coming up on 22 hours ago. So, you know, almost 5 days ago. It took off with no fuel.
Yeah.
Almost 5 days ago. It's been flying non-stop with one person on board. The poor guy has been flying the plane for nearly 5 days now with no fuel, just using solar power and batteries. Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable achievement. It's absolutely incredible. And they're going to take it then from Hawaii on to Arizona from there afterwards. But this is the toughest leg. It won't take as long to get from Hawaii to Arizona as it does to get from Japan to Hawaii.
Well, it's to do with the landfall. You know, all the other places, they had a reasonable expectation of being able to reach land.
True.
Obviously, crossing the Pacific, that's just obviously very, very difficult. You know, he's been catching 20-minute cat naps.
Yeah.
Entire way across for the last 5 days. So, but it is phenomenal. That, you know, that plane will do something that nobody else has ever done. Wow, it's just unbelievable. You know, the previous record, what was it? Voyager did it on one single tank of fuel, and that was a plane that was designed by
Bertrutan.
Spaceship One, Mr. Spaceship One. So I think he had a hand in this one as well, because nobody does planes like that guy. Nobody. You know, I remember he uses wind tunnels and computer modeling, but he actually starts with a physical model first.
Right.
So wow. Phenomenal. You know, he's just got this gift for aerodynamics. He's a savant for it.
Cool. And sticking with transportation, but a slightly different slant on it this time, we're seeing the rail agency in the US. They're giving their data on rail crossings to Google Maps to say, please put our data into your maps, because we know lots of people are using your maps to get around the place. And we've seen a huge uptick in the amount of accidents at rail crossings in the last year. So please do this. They had their own application, the rail agency, but nobody was using it. So they figured they got a new director, and the new director was out of, I think she was formerly Facebook. So she came into the rail agency and said, look, you know, no one's using our application. Why not put the data where people R.
Yeah.
So they've given it to Google, and they're also talking to Apple and Nokia as well, I think, and a few of the other mapping agencies, probably Garmin and TomTom as well. Yeah, it's there it is. Yeah, Google, Apple, and yeah, there it is. Apple, MapQuest, TomTom, and Garmin.
Yeah,
they've given it to. And they'll try and get them to build it into their maps as well. But by far and away, the most used, I suspect, is Google at the moment. So having it built into Google, you know, will make a big difference, you'd hope.
Yeah.
I'm gonna plow through. We've 10 minutes left, and we've still a few stories. So I'm gonna go through a few of them quickly. That some of them that are of less importance, I suspect. There's this nice one out of Apple, and basically it's an update to GarageBand, which is their free music app, basically music making app. It's quite a good composing app. My kids have used it, and
I'd like to say, Tom, are you a budding musician?
Me, no. I'm not bad on percussion, but musician, no. No.
No, slapping the table after a couple of pints does not count as percussion, mate. I'm sorry.
I played in a band for a number of years, and in fact, the first time I saw my wife was when I was playing in a session in a pub in Cork.
You know, I didn't want to go there. I really did.
We used to play 2 nights a week.
Cliche, but you know,
we were paid. We were paid 2 nights a week to play in sessions in pubs. It was great fun.
Oh, very nice. There
you go. Not a lot of people know that, but there you go. I have a background in okay. I'm going to hang my head now. It's in trad music, but anyway.
Fair enough. But look, I like this one because it enables people to actually to publish music in the same way that I know that they're reasonably evil, that Amazon allows people to publish novels through their digital content or their digital distribution system. So this is phenomenal, and at the same, it's, you know, who was it? Zane Lowe joined Apple Music from BBC One, or from Radio One, and he has really taken on the mantle from John Peel for championing new acts and stuff like this. This will absolutely play to his.
Sorry about that.
No. Oh, Jesus, the animals are going nuts. Get back here. Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, somebody rang the bell here. A delivery, I suspect. Freddie has become a very good guard dog from not making any noise when he came to suddenly he's and you know, you say boo to him and he'll run away, but he's loud, which is good.
Yeah. But to get back, so this will actually work really well with Zane Lowe stuff. So you know. Yeah, but that's actually really cool. I really like that because nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is doing that. Yeah.
It's very good. As you say, I mean, GarageBand is free on Macs. You can buy, if you don't have it on a tablet or a phone, you can get it for something like €5, I think it is.
Yeah.
If you don't have it already, the update is, if you do have it already, the update's free. You can create, you can lay down tracks on it, which is fantastic, and it's really good. It's got a load of different instruments that you can add into it. It's a very comprehensive music creation tool, and now you can publish to iTunes from it using their Connect app. So it's as part of their new Apple Music offering. So it's as you say, it's pretty cool.
How many douchebags with a guitar are we going to get now on iTunes?
There is that danger, indeed. There is.
I know.
There was some nice news out of Microsoft this week as well. They've open sourced their worldwide telescope application, and their worldwide telescope astronomy software. It's an incredibly comprehensive software tool that's used by astronomers. unbelievably good and unbelievably comprehensive. If you go to the app, it gives you a nice demo run through that you can go through, and it takes you through it. This is our solar system, but this is it's like Google Earth, but for the universe.
Yeah,
it is amazing. It's really comprehensive. And I mean, one of the things they talk about in the demo is the fact that Jupiter has 60 moons. It shows them all orbiting, so you've got this kind of web effect around Jupiter as these 60 moons orbit it, and you see the orbits. It's really impressive, and you can add stuff into it as well. And you get all kinds of depths of content, and you can see research papers, latest research on any individual item, and it's just amazing. And they've made it open source, so people can take it now and go in any direction with it. It's really impressive. And the other cool news out of Microsoft is they're launching a portal for teachers to use Minecraft in the classroom. It's their Minecraft in Education portal. So kids love Minecraft.
Right.
Now they're saying bring it into the classroom and teach kids using a tool that kids actually know and love at the moment. And they're talking about using it to teach kids around geography, around history, around maths, around things like that. So it's an interesting one. I'm not sure how teachers will take to using Minecraft, but there will be some who are innovative enough and out there enough to take it on and try it out and see how they get on with it.
Well, let's face it, Minecraft is a phenomenon, and there are so many good things that you can teach with it.
Yeah.
And it engages kids, and that's what you need. You need to be able to engage the kids.
Correct.
I think it's I'd rather have too many things than too little things than how to engage kids. I look at my niece, who absolutely adores Minecraft.
How old is she?
She's 8. So she is. I think she's nine this week actually.
My kids play Minecraft on the computer while talking to their friends on a Skype chat. So they're chatting away with their friends on Skype, and there's 2 or 3 of them together, all in the same server, all working away on Minecraft, playing cooperatively, building things cooperatively. It's fantastic.
It is. It is phenomenal.
It's virtual Lego, and one of the things that one of the reasons I think it's better now is that Lego, when we were kids, used to be you get a box full of blocks and very little in terms of design or direction.
Yes.
So all the blocks were interchangeable. You could use them in anything.
Yeah.
Whereas now you're getting Lego kits which are incredibly specialized, and you can only make the thing that's on the front of the box.
Yeah.
And a lot of the blocks that come with it are so specialized you can't use them for anything else.
No, exactly.
So Minecraft has Lego beaten hands down in that front, because you can build anything you want in Minecraft.
Well, not only that, you're not limited, or you're only limited by in whenever you've got Lego, you can only do what you have the blocks for. Whereas in Minecraft, you can create new blocks.
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. The one thing I always wanted to do with Minecraft with my niece was actually to use the Raspberry Pi and use an IoT scenario, where if you turned a light on if you use one of the switches in the Raspberry Pi to turn the light on, you would actually turn the light on in Minecraft. What you can do is you can use, there's an API that you can use on Scratch. So you can actually use Scratch on the Raspberry Pi, with the Raspberry Pi, to take a physical input and then push that into the API layer of Minecraft to turn on a light. Sweet. Which I thought would be brilliant. But she didn't, and I didn't have she didn't have the concentration span for it, and I didn't have the time to do it.
Right. I can sympathize with that.
Exactly.
But moving on, the next one that I saw was the EU finally setting a date to eliminate roaming charges. Didn't go as far as they should have gone net neutrality, but roaming charges going in Europe is a big thing. So they've set 2 dates. The first date is, I think it was April 2016. Yeah, there it is. April 2016. In April 2016, they're drastically reducing the cost of roaming.
Yes.
It comes down to operators will only be able to charge an extra 5 euro cent per minute per call made, 2 cent per text message, and 5 cent per meg of data, excluding tax. So excluding VAT. That's a significant reduction on where it is now. I think it's around 50 cents now per meg of data. And by a little over a year later, by June 2017, it has to be uniform in price no matter where you are.
Yeah.
So whatever price your operator charges you at home, they have to charge you the same as long as you're within the EU. So
I need to apologize actually on stories like this about roaming rates and things like that. I've said that the European Commissioner who actually challenged the mobile companies so heavily was actually from Portugal. She wasn't. She was actually from the Netherlands. So I got that wrong. So apologies. But yeah, this is phenomenal. But at the same time, it doesn't really affect me because I use 3, and 3 have your at-home stuff. So I think the only country I had an issue with up until April this year was actually Spain.
Right.
But every other European country I could roam and use my minutes and my data. But the point about it is they were forced into that because of this type of thing. They got the first mover and the PR advantage of saying, we're going to let you do it now, and nobody else is going to let you do it. So aren't we lovely?
I wonder, should I switch to 3 now?
They may let you roam, but I can tell you now that my experience roaming is that they don't have very good data rates with their partners. They don't, especially out in the States. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I use the Karma in the States, so that wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll plow on because we've gone a little over time and we still have 2 stories to get through.
Yeah, these are important.
They're quick enough. The first one is around Alzheimer's, and this is one that's very close to home. It's a story about a new treatment that comes from Australia. And of the mice that were treated with it, 75% got their memory function back.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive. And it's a non-invasive treatment. The treatment using basically ultrasound.
Yeah.
Where they treat in this case, the mice with ultrasound, and those ultrasound waves break up the tau proteins and things like that cause the plaques in the brain, which cause a decrease in function.
Yeah.
One thing that isn't clear is sure they've restored the memory function.
Yes.
But it's different from restoring memories. So
yeah,
I suspect
that was going to be my thing. It says function. Now, obviously, Alzheimer's attacks the short-term memory. Well, you know this an awful lot better than I do. The longer-term memories actually stay the longest, so they do the earlier memories.
They don't mention anything about the cognitive functionality either. It's the loss of cognition, which is very hard to deal with. Anyway, look, it's maybe if they get people early on enough with this, the cognitive effects won't manifest, and the memory function will be restored.
And as you say, it's non-invasive. You would be able to repeat this treatment over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You have people coming back at 5-year intervals. The same way they do with angioplasty and stents and things like that. There, you can be stented twice, so you can, and you go for regular checkups. So there's no reason why this couldn't be something similar.
True. I mean, it's awesome news because there's very little hope at the moment for anyone who does get a diagnosis. So it's tremendous in that scenario. It's still it's 3-4 years out. Obviously, it's one of these things that's just reported in lab in mice. So they need to get human trials, and then they need to get it into production, for want of a better term. But yeah, when it is, if it does make it that far, it'll be a huge deal for anyone. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. It's non-invasive, so I don't see any problems with getting it approved for human trials. And
it does kind of make you wonder whether Larry Page, he talked, must be about 18 months ago, about areas of the world that actually would sign up and for a reduced ethics, if you will, for certain types of research, where companies would be able to go and actually experiment with much fewer constraints upon themselves, and it's one of those ones where you sit and you think, would it actually work? It sounds really good in principle if the company has a good agenda, as it were. But
how often does that happen?
Pardon?
How often does that happen?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, as long as the needs coincide, then I suppose many sins can be forgiven. But there's, you know, what price are you willing to pay?
True.
That's the question.
Yeah. Last story, and it is this one. It's not as deep as a lot of the stories we've talked about today, but basically, MasterCard are saying that they have a new ability to do payment by selfie.
Oh, Jesus.
I know, yeah, but I mean, what it is there we go again. Sorry about that.
No worries. I hit the volume button because my dog is much bigger than your dog and much louder.
my dog runs out of the room when she hears when he hears the bell, so that what you're hearing is a sound of receding barking.
It's the Doppler effect.
There you go. Doggy Doppler. Basically, that story is about using facial recognition, biometric facial recognition. Yeah. So it's the whole taking a selfie thing. It's that's a bit of a one of the cool things that built into it is that when you're taking the picture of yourself, it's actually a little bit of video of your face, because you have to blink.
Yes.
And that they reckon that way they're getting over someone holding up a photograph.
Yeah.
You get a bit of movement built into it.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's not bad. Anyway, that's the last story for this week. It's more of a bit of a laugh.
Yes,
than a lot of the other previous stories we had.
Oh, absolutely. I you know, actually, my bank has it right. It has a two-factor authentication built in, so it's MasterCard, but the bank. So anytime I pay by credit card, I also have to re-authenticate myself through my payment provider, and it does the usual: give me the first, fifth, and seventh digit of your passphrase or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's fine when you're on the desktop, but it's a pain in the backside when you're actually on the mobile using a website.
When I got dropped out of the Hangout a little while ago, I had to come back in through log in through Google, which I have on two-factor authentication. So they had to send me a passphrase, and I had to type it in, and I got it wrong twice while typing it in. So that's why I was out for so long. It's oh god, you know, two-factor authentication is good in that it's very secure, but it's a pain in that it's an extra 2 or 3 steps into your login.
It means that because I have so many websites on two-factor authentication through the Google Authenticator, it means that whenever I flash my phone, before I flash my phone and put a new OS on it, I have to actually bring up each of those sites and log into them on the desktop, because flashing my phone completely wipes it. So,
oh god.
So then whenever I reinstall the authenticator, I then have to scan the QR code again to get the authenticator back on the app. You know, but at the same time, now that I've remembered to do that, because I did forget when I handed back my SAP device whenever I left, and realized that, oh crap, there was 1 or 2 websites that I actually had to go to, you know, support and get them to cancel the two-factor with about 10 million points of identification. So,
oh my god.
I know. But listen, I'm going to have to run. So thank you very much. Everyone have a lovely weekend, and hopefully you have the weather to enjoy it. And I will see you next Friday.
All right.
Cheers
everyone. Thanks for coming. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.